Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate having you here and taking the time out of your day to volunteer for this guest speaker segment. With that being said, I'd like to dive right in and kind of ask you, what's your opinion and why you got into this sort of professional background around eVTOL, and just a little bit about your background.
Okay, all right. That can be a long story, but I'll try to make it short. I've been in the aviation industry for about 40 years. Time flies. I'm having so much fun. I have worked on many types of flight vehicle, from regional turboprop, business jets, personal jet, piston aircraft, special mission platform, all the way to wing and ground effect machine, hovercraft, and utility drones. Maybe we can put out, there you go. Here's some of the project I worked on. I think pictures was 1,000 words right there. The middle one is one I'm pretty proud of. I'm proud of all of them, I guess. But the middle one is a little bit unique capability. It's a small jet, but it can fly up to 49,000 feet cruise, and 12 psi cabin pressurization, which really posed a challenge and an opportunity. Think about the medical transport, and the patient can operate at a sea level transport without experiencing the altitude changes throughout the flight. And also that's the only one in that category I know of that can fly from San Francisco to Honolulu without landing in the water. Here comes the 2,500 nautical mile range capability. So pretty proud of that. And maybe we can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
And that's another one that I call it my baby, I guess. It's a Canadian Diamond D-Jet it's a personal jet. It's a single engine personal jet designed especially from inside out. We designed for the pilot owner pilot type, as well as comfort seating on the backside. So the airplane is really from inside out design, and for non-professional pilot to operate and to basically have fun all day long if they want to. So I start from hiring the first person all the way to build the team, establish all the lab test capabilities, design, develop, build prototype, testing, production tooling, negotiation with all the suppliers, which is a challenge, to say the least.
I can imagine.
That gave me a pretty good, broad view from the big picture all the way down to specific details. So I really appreciate that experience. Maybe next page, please. And as I use the word flight vehicles because, in my view, it's not limited to just aircraft or helicopters. Ducted the vertical takeoff, that's a concept, but including hovercraft. I consider anything that flies over an inch above the ground is flying. So, and of course, I authored a book on the wing and ground effect machine. So anyway, a little bit of background of my technical background on different projects and so on. The reason I got engaged in more eVTOL traced back to like 2004 when this Indian Ocean tsunami hit broad area, and basically 228,000 people died in 14 countries. That was major disasters. And then followed that, 2007, another tsunami hit Bangladesh. Again, thousands of people died. I looked into those reports and realized that many people died not during the hit, but after the disaster occurred, we couldn't get the rescue team, the food, water, medicine to the disaster area fast enough, and that caused additional disasters, follow up. So I thought, hey, we're in such an advanced technology world that, and we have so much resources around the world, we got to be able to do better. So I came up with the idea of global rapid response network concept. Maybe we team up with some volunteer teams, our first responder, the engineer, mechanic, doctors, and medical personnel, and so on. equipped with a very long-range large platform like winging ground effect machines, maybe the size of a 2 or 3 747, mid-range aircraft, which we have plenty of those, helicopters and so on, and short-range last-mile capability, because quite often we get the capability material people near the disaster area, we couldn't get to the people, and that we need to solve. So that links to my story here. And back in 2017, we were one of the early eVTOL meetings and organized by Vertical Flight Society and NASA. The NASA Aeronautical Research Institute director, Michael Dudley, asked me if I would be interested to be the lead of a transformative vertical flight working group on public services. And I thought about it for about half a second. I said, yeah, please twist my arm. I'll do that. Because I see the opportunity. This could solve part of my big picture problem, the last mile logistic problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we can jump to the slide 6, if you would. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And that's basically just want to spend a minute to explain what that means. Basically, we organized 4 working group, and 2 and 3 now combined. And so we look at different aspects. The private recreational vehicles. We look at the commercial air transport, and my team. We have over 100 members from all different backgrounds and so on. And we focus on public service. How do we leverage all the excitement, development, advancement, do some good, helping people and saving lives. So that's really what the working group, maybe next slide. That's what the working group 4 is focusing on. And search and rescue, law enforcement, firefighting, medical transport, emergency humanitarian response, military operation, and so on. And we focus on some of the roadmap looking ahead 10 years to see what needs to be done, what can be done, and so on. And maybe next slide, please. Yeah, one of the useful material maybe that you can download the NASA white paper we put together. So take a look. But anyway, that's how I get into this here. So sorry, long story, not that short.
I appreciate it. It's all very impressive, and with this kind of innovations that we're making with eVTOLs, I look forward to the future and seeing how we can apply them and everything. So with that being said, in your opinion, what are some of the major advantages and disadvantages in this technology?
Okay, well, hey, let's move to slide 2. I think that may be useful in the context. It's this way we can look at pictures and talk. So not talking. The eVTOL really one of the major advantage why a lot of people are looking at using it for the urban air mobility is because it's quieter compared to traditional helicopter. Most of the eVTOL design are significantly quieter, so the acceptance by the community are much likely to work. Now, in addition to that, mechanically, in most of the cases, are simpler, less complex compared to traditional helicopter, for example. Many of the designs are without single point failure, which is always a good thing. You can lose a rotor and airplane will automatically rebalance itself and so on. And many of those designs are green, depends on what your electricity sources are. But at least the flying wise, we're green. I mean, many of them are battery powered. So that's a good part. But they're typically limited by range as a battery technology, and some compensate that with a hybrid options, and that can help somewhat. But overall, it's the downside also is it's challenging on the software side. We trade a mechanical complexity to the flight software, and it's critical in many portion of the software. So I have to manage that. that comparison, helicopter is much more capable of hovering and vertical lifting. And they are not necessarily the best cruise machine. That's why we come up with the tiltrotor like V-22s and so on. It's helicopter typically has a complex mechanical system. The engine, the transmission, the gear head, the rotor head, very complex. So the maintenance level is high to keep it in the good, safe working condition, and do have some single point failure conditions. But it's way more mature technology, and it's generally speaking expensive. So to own and to operate and to maintain. So there's some other trade-offs. It's not one much better than the other. Maybe we'll move to the next slide. Yeah, but you can see that there's so many different eVTOL design, and so the industry, it's not easy to. We're not there yet. We're not quite fully mature industry. We're at the beginning, and which is where the fun part is.
Yeah,
that's where we come in, right? Yeah.
With that being said, do you have any sort of real world examples where one might be more useful than the other?
Well, let's say urban. Well, for one thing, like urban air mobility. If you want to fly in neighborhoods, residential air neighborhood, or even in the cities, even though in the city the road noise is quite loud, but still, whenever a helicopter comes in, you noticed it.
Right.
But we believe that from some of the testing done so far, the eVTOL are quiet enough, and if you're a little bit distance away, or in the cruise type eVTOL, you can hear it on the ground, and therefore, hopefully, the objections will be much less. We still have to deal with the local vertiports and so on, the restrictions and the building codes and so on. But it's much more likely to be successful as a point-to-point short-range transport for eVTOL. And of course, as I say, there's many other opportunity use cases that we can apply. Maybe we can go to slide 4. I think that's... Yeah, I mean, there's some of the eVTOL use cases, air taxi we just talked about, multimodal mobility, airline. I always like to be able to jump into an eVTOL, go straight to the airport and drop me off, but we have to solve some other security questions and so on. And of course, corporate flights. I mean, you can go from one of the manufacturing site to the other one if it's not too far apart.
Right.
And there are personal transport, recreational, on-demand logistic. Cargo is going to be a big time because many of them are much lower operating complexity and maintenance and service. So logistic it seems to be one of the early adopter missions. And of course, public service will always talk about that. Maybe one more slide. And yeah, so just trying to make a point that the passenger and cargo are likely the equal important use cases. But helicopter, come on, we've been using helicopter for a long time. We found very good use for it, and I don't need to elaborate too much on that. And if we need heavy lift, helicopter is your man. And if we need high speed and range, tilt rotor like the new Bell 280 or compound helicopter will likely to be the future. So I think we're going to have room for all of those, and all use case based choices.
Yeah, it's very cool. With all the applications for like you said, corporate travel, passenger travel, would you say that eVTOLs are equally safe as far as helicopters and normal flight planes would go?
Yeah, well, I always say eVTOLs as safe, but I like to basically preach to the choir that the devil is in the details. In the big picture, I would say eVTOL, by the architecture, the design feature, the concept of distributed propulsion, fail-safe conditions, able to you can lose one or two rotors in many of the design that you can manage safe landing, and some are designed with parachute, low altitude parachutes and so on. to further enhance the safety. So helicopter you can auto rotate. It's challenging maneuvering, but they do practice that. I always have a lot of respect for anybody who can manage auto rotation. And fixed wing airplane, we practice engine out conditions and so on. So I would say the architecture perspective, eVTOL is as safe, in some cases maybe better. But it really comes to the detail design, the software, the fail mode, the response, and the supporting infrastructure, navigation, networks, and so on. If you fly too close to the building, what's the micro weather looks like? So because we use in different places for different use cases, the additional safety consideration and effort has to be put in.
Yeah, that makes sense. With that being said, how do you see the future of eVTOLs heading and the infrastructure needed to support them?
That's a big ticket item. big business opportunity as well. It's really, that's a critical element for eVTOL to be successful. I'll take two halves of the answer. One is for urban air mobility. You have to have a whole bunch of vertiports where you think you need it, either at the other transport hub that you come in on top, you come in, be able to and connect to other transport systems and so on. Or you land where you want to be, like the hotel top of where the downtown, where the Dodge Stadium next to it, and you can go watch a football game, whatever. And so infrastructure, not just the vertiport, but the navigation system, the sense and avoid capabilities, planning, congestion in case of unplanned event. This aircraft is supposed to leave that vertiport and you come in for landing. Well, he has a little issue, passenger delay. Okay, what do you do then? So procedure-wise, they're allowed to develop. But in the, maybe you can have a look at the slide 15. And the other side is the charging system. Okay, where do you charge and how do you charge? I spent some time looking at what do you do with the public services. If you have to, if fire department is using it, okay, they're going to set up a charging stations where they park the airplanes and they can go help get the firefighter to the site quickly and so on. But what if you respond to a disaster and you're moving a whole bunch of airplanes from one major city to a distant city, 200, 500 miles away? What do you do? How do you charge? How do you keep them operating? How do you support them?
Right.
So a lot of mobile infrastructure capability is needed. That's one of the SAE committee is working on the charging standard for megawatt charging. I'm hoping that we can leverage the electric truck, the semi. They are going to have their charging station. Maybe we can land right next to their charging station. There we go. Yeah,
that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so we need to leverage what else is going on around the world, not just looking at eVTOL by itself or living little ivory tower. Anyway, it's a major challenge, but it's great opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. With that, so you've developed this series of edge research reports around the eVTOLs. With that, obviously, you had to do a lot of research and working with colleagues and interviewing them as well. Could you have a little insight on how they see the opportunities and challenges ahead in this industry?
Okay. Can you find slide 10? I think we can show some of the report that we have published. Yeah, right there. Intentionally using different pages so that it doesn't look all the same. It's kind of boring picture. That's the same. But we work on several reports, basically leveraging eVTOL for different use cases, including response to global pandemic. Next time, hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, what can we do? What's what can we make a difference? Vaccine delivery to the underserved communities or whatever. There's many opportunity and challenges there. Of course, look at the rapid response on-demand firefighting. This can change the landscape of how fast we can respond to not only the urban fire but also wildfire. We can make a difference. And of course, natural disasters. That's one of my pet projects. Is how can we help people? We just hit in Florida by a big hurricane that a lot of communities are isolated because the passage are blocked and bridges washed away and so on. And hey, we can make a difference. We can come in and help and make a difference. And of course, the one that just get published was the about last mile transport and logistics for military applications, and that actually linked to a lot of disaster relief and response and so on. Because guess who helped in the disaster time? A lot of times we leverage our military and around the world help come in and make a difference. Of course, there's a lot of things we can do with that medical evac and so on that we can make a difference there. So those are some of the topics we have published, and this one I'm working on is the police and fire first response topic. So Q1, Q2 next year.
Awesome.
But fundamentally, I got a lot of feedback from those contributors, the experts that I talk with, and so on. The ones that already engaged heavily into the eVTOL, I haven't talked to anyone that's not excited about it.
Right.
Impossible. And the one that only aware of it but not fully engaged in thinking hard, after we have some dialogue and brainstorming, they got so excited. They become one of those best spokesperson to help promote and engage in the activities and so on. We all recognize, and through working with them, we all identify the many challenges. But I have to say, most of the challenges are workable. It's something that we need to work on. That's why SAE is so important, that we get people together, work on those, we identify those, and we work on it. And therefore, in a few years, those ideas, concept, use cases become reality. And I think that's the beauty of some of the EDGE report, for example. So I have to say, they really give me a more positive input, energize for future work, because we see opportunity, we see challenges, and we see possible solutions.
Yeah, that's great. And I did want to just say one thing. I've read a couple of these EDGE research reports. They're fantastic and really puts real world application to this technology. For the audience, again, you can download these slides and check out these EDGE research reports as well. And then it looks like we did have a question from the audience here. From Mark Leduc, says, how do you see rare earth materials in the China-U.S. trade impacting battery development? What is the next in eVTOL, perhaps hydrogen?
From what I read, I think the rare earth material, I have wrong impression early days, but a little bit more I read about. Hopefully those reports are correct, but actually there are minerals in the U.S. And other places around the world. I think what challenge imposed to us from the situation with China is that most of the refinery process and capability are residing in China. And so some companies are working to build up those capabilities outside of China. But I hope that that is a challenge that we can solve together globally. I think that's I hope that's what I'm wishing for. We'll see how that goes. But there are companies and people who are working on the additional sources and refinery capabilities and so on. Now, that's needed based on everything we're working on right now. However, you mentioned the question about the hydrogen. I have to say, I was engaged in the Vertical Flight Society's hydrogen committee. We're working on a white paper right now, but I have to say I'm being retrained about thinking hydrogen. A year ago, I thought hydrogen is 10, 20, 30 years away topic. I have to say, what I saw, the companies, the facility, I have to retrain myself to think, what, hydrogen, not for every application, not for every platform, but for certain use cases of certain design, hydrogen is actually more near-term viable option than I have previously believed. So I'm encouraged by the progress. European countries EU seems to have been more aggressive, but I think the US and some other countries are start to pick up the momentum. So I'm pretty positive about it.
That's very interesting. I did not know that we're that close with hydrogen as well.
Well, maybe not tomorrow, but
yeah, right.
sooner than I thought before.
No, we have one more question. It looks like from the crowd about the batteries and electric motors. And it says, do most eVTOL companies manufacture and package their batteries or buy them from vendors? And how about the motors?
Both. Companies like Joby, they're much more vertically integrated, and so they do a lot of work in-house, and which require more resources and more expertise, but has certain advantage, supply chain disruptions and so on. They might see less impact if that happens again. But the other companies that I'm aware of and talk with, they don't necessarily always make the cell themselves. And there are some either specialty cell manufacturer and or large-scale producer. They sell a commercial grade cell. And there are several companies also do the power packaging work. In other words, they take commercial cell, just the cell itself ain't gonna give you the power system, the power source in the airplane. The packaging is actually where a lot of technology comes in. The cooling, the fire prevention, the sensing, the balancing. So the battery management system and the packaging of the cell into the battery pack, kind of like Tesla, battery underneath the platform. Similar situation, but there are tier one suppliers that do that. So some of the eVTOL company use the tier one supplier to do the packaging for them or work with them to design it. And of course, the motors, the same situation. Some companies choose to develop their own. I believe I read the report that the Archer choose to develop their own motors because they couldn't find the specification and the power ratio they particularly shooting for. So they choose to select certain items to be built in-house and develop and build in-house, and motor happened to be one of them. So I think you see a broad range, different company, different philosophy. Some more rely on tier one suppliers, some more bring it in-house. I think we'll continue to see the mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both ways seems like there's a lot of moving parts either way you go about it.
Yes.
Now with that, I'm sure there's there's a vast certification process for eVTOLs. Can you give us a little insight about that and how you feel the certification process is?
Well, I have to say that at the beginning, the last few years, there has been a change, which in a way may be good in the long run, but the FAA has always been asking the OEMs to leverage the Part 23 performance-based regulation, which I fully endorse that, as a base for certification. But later on, just early this year, it changed the direction and decided to treat the eVTOL as a special class of powered lift aircraft under Part 21.17b, which generated a lot of discussions and panic reaction from the industry. But my perspective is that that actually may come a little bit closer to what EASA is doing in Europe. They have published their special conditions of 2019, and the first set of minutes of compliance in 2020. So they're a little bit ahead of that. But just last month, I think, FAA also issued the means of compliance document, which allowed the industry to comment and look at what all goes in there. I think, we may not see as much, but FAA actually putting a lot of work in this, and a lot of thoughts, a lot of work, a lot of effort in this. I think moving forward, this effort may actually allow us to synchronize between European and US certification. Early days, I was worried about they're going two different directions, too far apart. Mm-hmm. It makes the reciprocal validation almost impossible. But I'm hoping, and my observation is that we're heading closer to the approaches. It will take a while before we sync, but I think FAA has shown us that they are working diligently and making good progress on this. So I feel better today than I was maybe 2 years ago. I think the industry is also learned a lot from a lot of wishful thinking wannabe to facing, okay, this is an aircraft certification, deal with it. There are some unique situation, unique item, unique aspect of eVTOL that we haven't dealt with before. And now it's being established, it's being discussed, it's being looked at, it's being worked on. So I feel quite positive right now at this point.
Good. I have one final question here for you. So with the certification process becoming more consolidated, it sounds like, between American and the European countries, do you think that's going to make the market for eVTOLs crowded with startups and other competitors? Or how do you see that in the next few years?
Well, you will be crowded guarantee for a while. But I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see more consolidation, because there's no way we're going to have several hundred eVTOL company OEM out there that not supportable. The market cannot support that. Financially, market, business, it's a no-win situation. So consolidation is a good thing. And also, I think we can, sometimes when you consolidate, you combine, you can leverage the strengths of different parties and come together, become a better, smarter, more capable company that had the strength and capability moving forward. I also think that some of the so-called consolidation may be changing in business model. Some wannabe OEM company might have found themselves to be very capable, become tier 1 supplier. They are very good at building a sub-assemblies, all fully staffed and sub-assemblies, and send it to the OEMs, and that may become their business. Now, maybe some company have much more strength and capability to become a leasing financing company for eVTOL. Some company may focus on spare parts, service, maintenance, logistic. So I think, and even some company may become a special equipment manufacturer, STC, modified off-the-shelf production airplane for special purposes. So there's a lot of business opportunity. Not everyone has to go away. I think many companies will find their way will find their niche. They find their where their strengths can be leveraged, and so on. So, in addition to consolidation, I think that may also happen at the same time.
Makes sense. So essentially, companies finding their way and staying with their strengths.
Hey, business people are smart. Okay,
Right.
we always find ways.
Well, Johnny, I think that's all I have, unless anyone from the audience has any further questions. As I stated, you can download the slides. I believe, Johnny, you had your contact information. If anyone has any further questions outside of the webinar itself here. But I wanted to thank you again for your time. We appreciate having guest speakers such as yourself coming on. And hope you have a happy holidays and happy New Year.
Hey, happy holiday for everyone.